Hey, I'm Mia, and I'm a mystic, and I've been working in the spiritual community for quite a while now. And whether you believe in that stuff or not, this is kind of what I learned that not just that community, but the bigger collective energy is kind of looking for nowadays. And I'm just kind of in a brainstorming process and kind of coming up with ideas and lists, and I would love some input, but whether anyone will see this is yet to be seen. But if not, it's for my future self. So the question I was working on now was, what do you wish you had in your education when you were younger? So I kind of have a list that I'm working through. So I'm going to go through the list with you, and I would love if your input on if you would edit any of those, change any of them around, or add anything. And at the end, I'm going to do like a quick list of what we came up with in this video. So the first thing I wish I could change in my education when I was younger is learning how to deal with emotions. Like, I think that is such a huge issue right now. Like, we have a mental health crisis going on, and you can see how it kind of developed over the years. So, I'm a millennial, and I know our parents' generation came from a household that didn't really deal with emotions at all, and if they did, not in a healthy way. And so our parents grew up with a lot of emotional issues that they didn't know how to deal with. So our grandparents, they had like the life of hard knocks, but like if you put in the hard work, you can be successful and you can provide, and that can cause some happiness. Sorry, I thought my camera wasn't straight. And then our parents' generation, things were changing, the economy was changing, but they were still able to kind of get by with some of the things that their parents did in order to be successful. Just had a cough attack. And still be able to, buy a home, have kids, have a life that can bring happiness. And unluckily for us in this generation, and what we're seeing come up and have to be addressed now because it's so bad, is that we can no longer even the basics of life, like a roof over our heads, time to focus on our health and relationships. We can barely afford like groceries, right? So we can't even think about our happiness because we're in like survival mode. And we've had many instances in our lifetimes as millennials where it didn't work for us. I'm thinking of like college right now and like the payments, and yeah, it's not good. And then the trying to find a place, trying to find a job after that, trying to find a place to live that's affordable, and like, it's and then getting married later, and then having trouble with children because of our health, and it's been so eye opening, right? That things are obviously not working. And that is kind of putting a lot of focus on our mental health. We're recognizing that we have to get to the root of the issue, which is all the craziness that was passed down through our bloodline, and all those kind of cycles that need to be unpacked. In the spiritual world is kind of like our bloodline karma, we call it. So it's kind of like whatever your parents had to deal with, whatever your grandparents have to deal with, that was never really fully dealt with, was probably passed on through your upbringing, in different ways. So, but it doesn't really go away. It just keeps getting passed on. and however that happens for each individual family. But this is like the generation that's like, no, we literally can't move forward until this stuff is addressed and healed. So there's like a huge mental health crisis. People are like kind of not know how to deal with it. And it's like, why weren't we taught this in school? The basics of emotions. It's all physical. You know, you had to do geography, math, and science, and, you know, language. Like, but what about how to deal with this body you're given and your emotions, which literally dictates everything, all the problems you've had, how you handle your finances, how you like pick your life path. Like, it literally affects everything. How you build relationships with other, which is the number one thing that we have to focus on right now, is forming a relationship with ourselves that's healthy to get our health back on track, and then how to have healthy relationships with others, because that's what causes happiness. That's the foundation of happiness, is through connections with others and healthy relationship with yourself and understanding of yourself. And, you know, that's like getting back to basics. That's literally what we have to do. And emotions and teaching kids at a young age is very important. We can definitely, going through this list, figure out what we as adults still need to kind of figure out, but we can nip it in the bud for a lot of kids now, so they don't have to deal with this as adults like we are, right? All right, so the second point is being around different age groups. Okay, so being around different age groups, this idea came to me from the Native American idea of when you were going out to hunt, you'd have boys from different age groups. Like, you'd have the adult leading the hunt, and then you'd have the young adult who's, you know, ready to take after the leader, you know, learning from the leader themselves. And then, you know, younger kids, like teenagers and, you know, preteens, like kids a lot younger than that, they'd all kind of go out in a group depending on how dangerous the situation is. And if the little kid has a question, they can ask like the kid or older than them, you know, what's going on. And it gives like the people in the middle a chance to kind of learn from those older than them and wiser than them, and more experience than them, and giving them respect, being like, hey, I'm learning from you. And then passing it out down to the younger kids, giving them a chance to like learn how to teach the younger kids. And younger kids always have like different questions that you don't really think of. It's like, you know, makes you think of things in different ways, different solutions. And so you're kind of learning from each other, and you're learning how to teach, because once you teach, you get a mastery of it, right? And you have more feeling for those who are older than you, having more respect for their wisdom and their experience. And you feel for those that are younger than you, you know, being like, oh yeah, I was taught by my mentor, or, you know, this kid that was older than me, like I want to pass that on. You kind of learn how to mentor and how to be there for others. So it comes from that idea. And, you know, they put us all in these like age groups, like the grade, this class where we're all the same age. And so we're learning emotions from someone who's exactly the same age as us, which isn't healthy, because what do we know as kids about emotions and how to deal with social issues? We're learning it from other people who are learning in the same dynamic. They're not learning from someone who's been through this, or, you know, from a different lens. And it makes it a little bit more competitive, because these are like your direct competitors. It's not, you don't have like as much compassion. I mean, you make friend groups, but it doesn't carry the same weight as like a group of different ages where you care about every age. It creates a hostile environment, and you're learning emotions from people who also don't know how to deal with those emotions. And you have like one teacher in the front of the classroom, So you're not getting involvement with different age groups, which there's so much to learn from different age groups, and it helps you later on in life when you have to interact with other age groups. For interviews, when you're raising kids, being around your family's kids, it's a more organic way to live, and there are going to be chances to be around people mostly your age, whether it's like a working environment or kind of a college type environment or whatever it is, friend groups and such. But there's an advantage to be exposed to people of different ages from a younger age. So you get to see different perspectives, even in terms of teachers, to kind of get teachers from different age groups. And this concept of mentors and apprenticeships and things like that needs to be brought back in to society for sure. So I'm going to go into more of that in points 4 and 5, but point 3 is having more of a individually curated curriculum. So I never understood this. I never understood why you couldn't take the classes that you wanted to take. It makes no sense. Yeah, it's a little bit more of a complex system. It's harder to keep all those students in check when there's so many students, and what classes they're supposed to be in, and, paying individual attention to each student. Oh, who would have, thought that could be good for a kid. But yeah, everyone's different. Everyone learns at a different pace. So for the previous point of being in different age groups, like not everyone in the same age group is learning at the same pace or is going to be learning the same topics with the same ferociousness and vigor. So we have, people who could be more athletic and have more physically oriented goals in life and skill set. And we have those who are more intellectuals and academic, and those that have even more specific, unique interests or passions or skill sets. And, there's just like a wide range. And we've seen those kids, we've seen people who've known what they wanted to do at a young age and how they were able to advance so far in that specific field because they were able to know what they wanted to do at a young age, right? So it kind of goes into that. Not all of us are blessed to be able to have the chance to be exposed to the possibilities out there. That's going to be a point coming up. I might change these around. If you have a better way to organize point 3, 4, and 5, let me know. But yeah, you should be able to work on the things that you're interested in and that you have natural abilities in, and a passion to learn that skill set, because passion is a thing that's going to drive you to push yourself forward and continue working hard in that line of work, even if you fail and get burnt out and fall over and over again. That's why passion is so important, because it's a drive factor. If you're doing something that you're not interested in, you're not gonna pursue it as far as you can possibly go. If you're really passionate about it, no matter how many times you fall, you're gonna keep getting back up, and that's the point. That's how you succeed. Is based on how many times you get back up, not how many times you fail. Failure is a part of learning, and if you don't fail, you're not gonna succeed. And if you don't keep trying, you're not going to fail or succeed. And you need a bunch of those to master something, right? So you need to have passion. Otherwise, you're going to give up. And not only the things that you're good at, but the things that you're not good at. So, for example, those who are, really academically inclined, why can't they choose, for example, they might not be the best in physical activities, right? Things that involve exercise and workouts. Why couldn't you allow that student to choose the physical activity they prefer and would be most interested in, to also expand the thing that is their weakness. So why can't you have students pick out the things that they're good at to expand in their natural abilities, their passion, their skills, and the things that they're not good at to make them a better person, to make them well-rounded. Like, I don't understand why this was an impossible task for people to kind of implement in schools. And not only that, but to start at a younger age, to figure out what you want to do in your life at a younger age, so that you have more classes related to that. Like, for someone who's, like, for example, if you're going into music, and you're really gifted and you're talented in that, that you would only need to know like a certain amount of math and science, or you might want to know the math and science about specific things in music. Like, it should be curated to that person. I know it's like, oh, well, that's going to be a very individualistic class, like a very specific, unique class. Like, how would you, like, it wouldn't make sense to have a school that has that one class for just like 2 or 4 people. Well, that we're going to get to that, but like class, it shouldn't be just, there should be classrooms that have these super niche topics or specific subjects that are taught, that people can be involved in from different communities, not just that town. It makes sense. It's closer, for if you're in that town, to have the basic classes for when you're younger. But as you get older, and as you start to realize that, like, hey, I would really benefit for this very specific type of class or subject matter, being able to have those available. I kind of was brainstorming there, and it did not loop back to something tangible or practical, but I just kind of went with whatever I was brainstorming there. Anyway, okay, so having an individually curated curriculum, basically to kind of start moving towards a life path that you already know that you're going to be interested in or are probably going to take. And that way you can like decide, like, if you later on you want to switch to a different line of work or something, like, you can make that decision. You can assess the risk. Like, okay, well, I'll have to take all these classes again. Is it better for me to switch over now? Am I sure that I want to switch over now? You can start to kind of make those decisions. Whereas, like, a lot of us, we don't do that until we get to college or later in life, where we're like, oh, let me try out like what I want to do, what area I want to jump into. Why can't you start when you're younger, preteen, teenage years? You should be starting to make these decisions and start thinking about these things. Which leads me to point 4, which is being exposed to as many careers, jobs, and paths as possible, life paths as possible. And I think that's like super important. I think that we should have people who work in so many different industries and line of work come in and have the kids exposed to as many jobs and careers out there, possibly out there. And this also brings me to the idea of not having the classroom in one building. Like, you go to a building and you're trapped inside a classroom all day. When we know that you have better memory recall when you associate whatever you learned with something new, like a new environment, a new experience. That's how you are able to retain memory better. So I am totally opposed to having classrooms in one building. In fact, I think that I think we should integrate education into every aspect of society. So I think that like companies and like bigger companies or farms and different like homes, households, and different businesses should have classrooms for for kids to come in and for teachers to teach, for a whole week or for a whole month about this industry or this type of work or whatever it is, and be in the environment, see the workers coming in and out of that workplace, see how it like all comes together. Like actually get an idea for what work is really like. I think I didn't really even know what my like parents did. There was no like bring your daughter to work day or anything until I actually went to school for what one of my parents did and went to visit their workplace when I had an interview. Like that was the first time that I saw what my parents actually did and how this like place of work actually worked. Not until then I was like working like smaller jobs and like high school jobs, or like when you're younger, like mall jobs, or at like retail and restaurants and stuff like that in college and stuff. But to be in like an office, or to be in like, I remember going on tours of a business and to be able to see where people work and stuff like that, it's like, okay, you get a sense of the environment, you get to get a sense of like how more serious and more bigger businesses work versus a more laid back or more of a family oriented business or something like that. It's kids are smart and they can soak up so much good information just by being in that environment. Anyone can get more of an idea just by being there rather than just being told about it. And not only are we not seeing it and being there, we're not even being told about it. We're being taught something completely different. We're being indoctrinated, obviously, right? Like with the subjects that like help the businesses, the major businesses that need just workers, not thinkers, right? We all know that. If you've come across this video perchance, like you already know what's up, right? But yeah, being exposed to as many careers, jobs, and life paths, just like, do I want to be more laid back? Am I more ambitious? Do I want to work harder, longer hours? Like, do I want to achieve this or do I want to achieve that? Like, which leads me to my fifth point, which is class is about life and how society works, what society needs, and why do we need these occupations in the first place? Isn't that like the fundamental of what school is supposed to be about, like to get you prepared for life? Why don't we just start with why we need these things in life? How does modern society work? What were the structures of society before? What is still around? What things have changed? What might future predictions, future trajectories of how jobs might change in the future? Different life paths, being exposed to how different people are brought up, why different things might matter to different people, but so what every society needs. Giving kids like the foundation of life in that way, in a holistic way, can allow them to kind of make up their own mind on what they want to do. That wasn't the goal of school before, the education system that we have in place now and before, right? Like that was not the goal. It was to have kids have dreams and goals that aligned with the biggest businesses at that time that only wanted people to kind of work for them, right? Not figure out what they want to do with their life and work for businesses that stood in line with their own morals and beliefs and vision. I'm going down this list and I'm like getting a little depressed. Like this, like what this is how we make life, this is how we improve, right, society, right, is like we're talking about these things. It's like it's a bit sad, like why haven't we gotten these things in life already? Like we should have had these basics, right? And it's sad. It's like, how long are we gonna live without these basics? Like, can we agree these are the basics in life and that like our kids should know? And granted, like parents, families should be teaching this to their children, communities, but we don't have that. We don't have that family dynamic anymore. We don't have that community dynamic anymore. And it's our schools are teaching our kids, you know? And I'm going back to like when I was a kid, what I wanted, what I think other people want for their kids right now, and what they would have wanted when they were younger as well. And I'm trying to compile this list because it's like not until we look at it and address it can we like actually work towards these goals, you know? It's like, what are we working towards? Like, let's make a list. This is what I'm good at, making lists. But yeah, so getting kids the basic understanding of what society needs, like, and then kind of seeing like, is there a gap? Like, are we kind of running out of some people that we need in like as electricians or plumbers and things like that. Kind of seeing like one of the things I made a reference to in point 4 and point 5 is like, for example, if you have a huge interest in like art or music and you want to pursue that when you're, you know, middle school, high school, younger education, and then you realize you're not as good, or like maybe, you know, maybe there's a possible chance that you might not make money doing this. Like also working on another skill that will give you money so you can have a very well balanced life. Like maybe you don't want like the highest status in life when it comes to career status, or the like you don't have to make a ton of money, or those aren't like your specific goals. Like, you know, your goal is to make that music or make that art and have a good job that you like, that you enjoy doing, and that you're skilled at, and you can spend your days just working on your art and music, and you'll have the money to fund those creative projects, and then, you know, a good community base and a good home base and a very fulfilling life, because you were able to figure that out sooner in life, you know? So it kind of gives you a more realistic idea of where your skills rank and what you want out of life, and what you can realistically achieve, what you can realistically take a risk in, and, you know, being more prepared. Like, hey, like I'm going into a line of work that, you know, very small percentage of people make a lot of money in, so I need to kind of, it's like life planning. You know, like, okay, so I should find something that I also kind of like, that I can do for work, so I can fund my creative projects even if they don't provide like a huge income source, you know, income stream of money. So allowing folks to kind of better life plan. Yeah, and then having an understanding of why people, like, you know, someone might, you never know what's going to inspire someone. It's like, oh yeah, we need you know, a huge, you know, we need more nurses, or we need more of this or that, or we need people who can help in this, like being aware of like what the society needs, so, you know, people will stand up, you know. Like there are so many people, like, you know, we're talking about will it work if people are provided with the basics in life? And I'm not going to go down that route politically, because I think we'll save that for another time. But basically, will most people just kind of be lazy and not do what it takes to help society? And I think in this time in history, yeah, absolutely, there's going to be a lot of people who take advantage of those systems. They are right now. But there are still good people out there who would kind of, what's it called, rise up to these tasks, to to what's needed. And I feel like young folk are definitely ones that would that are like, have such purity and still like a golden heart that still want to do good for the world, and would step into some of these roles that like there's like a vacuum in, that there's a void in, and needs more people, even if it's for a short while, just to kind of get that industry or get that employment up. Okay. And so that leads me to point 6, and there's only 7 points here. 6 is practical life skills. I really wish that there was more like home ec style, wood shop style classes in school. I loved those kinds of classes. I think you need to teach people how to cook, basic skills in cooking, basic sewing skills, basic repairing skills, building skills, and car skills. You need basic car skills. You need to learn how the car works, how to fix things on your car, how to fix things around the home, how to cook for yourself, how to cook for others, basic cooking skills, how to sew, and also basic parenting skills and basic financial skills. Those are things that's just like, it's like up there with how to deal with emotions. It's like, why don't we teach these things in school? Like the system that we have now, it might have worked when it first was implemented, although it was not implemented for the best reasons to start off with. But it was assumed that you're going to learn these skills at home. And we no longer have that, since we don't really have a really great family home dynamic anymore, where the parents are really involved with the kids. Not everyone, but most families nowadays, I would like to argue, don't have that kind of connection where they're teaching their kids these basic life skills. Good for you if your parents did, or if you're a parent who is teaching your kids this, but I think a lot of folks would probably agree with me now that like it's hard when you have like 2 people working in the household. You don't have time for your kids. You barely have time for yourself. Everything's expensive. Life's crazy, and you're just trying to survive it. It's hard. Like, how do you have time to do all these additional things, when you're barely scraping by and you're barely like getting through these life events. And so we rely on our schools, right? And that's kind of why I would want these practical life skills be taught again in these schools, in the school system. It should be there. Basic life skills. Yeah. Like, I have family who grew up in the farm. I should know how to plant things. But I didn't. I didn't learn. I had to teach it myself, right? And much, much later in life as an adult, cooking. I'm grateful to have a parent that would cook for me like often. I ate healthy, I luckily have good skin because of that. But I had to learn cooking myself. And it's like, we're so behind now because we weren't taught these things earlier in life, and the parents are blaming the school systems and the bosses at work, and the bosses at work, like, it's not our fault. It's not our responsibility to teach your kid who's an adult who's working for us all these life skills. And the teacher's like, we have a curriculum. It's not our responsibilities to teach your kid these things. It's not part of our curriculum, so add it part of the curriculum. Sorry, they're installing windows downstairs. So I was lucky enough to not get it for the beginning of this video, but while we're finishing up, I'll make it quick. But yeah, practical life skills, very important. I know people who don't know how to boil water, and that's crazy. How to grow vegetables, how to, clean vegetables, how to cook with them, how to cut, how to repair clothes, how to make clothes, how to make certain things that you use daily around your home, how to store food, how to make tables, how to make a chair, how to make the basic furniture, how to take care of the basics of the car, to know the car. There's places in the country, like I remember my friend saying in the country that she's from, you're not even allowed to get a license unless you know every part of the car and how to fix everything. Like, makes sense. Yeah, because nowadays we're just relying on so many other people to do things around our home. And I'm like, looking around, it's like, you don't know how to make a home. You don't know how to make the things inside of a home. You don't know how to repair those things. You don't know how to know, the basics of how to take care of yourself or how to take care of another. Basic, like, medicine skills also. Like, what do you know how to do? How to post on social media? Like, that's not gonna, that's not like a life skill. That's not life. you know, like, look around you. Like, how many of those things around you do you know how to make? Do you know how to repair? Um, that's scary. That's kind of scary that people don't know how to do that. The people, the two elder gentlemen that are making the windows, putting in new windows down there, are both 72. They're older. Because no one, like, there, you can't find anyone, like, that can do these things. It's crazy. All right. Okay, then last point is technology and education. And this is kind of looking into the future. So I used to, like, love, like, future technology and look at, like, things, like, that people would predict would happen in the future. And, like, companies like Microsoft would put out, like, videos of, like, this is what we're planning for, like, 2050. Like, this is what we envision 2050 to look like. And I love those videos. And one of them was kind of like the classroom. And it was, like, kind of, instead of, like, a huge whiteboard, it was, like, a huge touch screen computer. And it'd be so helpful. And, like, for example, you can video chat with a classroom in a different country. And I thought that was really cool. You could practice language with them. And I think that's really cool. And technology is coming. It's expanding exponentially. And you're either ready for it or you're not going to be ready for it. So, yeah, AI is going to have a huge part in that. But before AI was even this big of a part of the conversation, like, I remember these, like, computers and walls. And, like, you can see that happening with, like, meetings, like in businesses and company meetings and stuff like that, like, just, like, touching things on your desk, everything's kind of like future technology, cool. But I love that about the classroom, because, like, the one thing that I think, like, instead of, like, learning geography, is actually visiting those countries inside the classroom. I think that would be great. What do other people eat? What are their daily schedules like? Why do they eat what they eat? What would they grow in that kind of climate or that area? How is their life different than yours? And yeah, and, like, learn, like, what languages would you want to speak? What countries would do you resonate with? And what kind of music and culture do they have? And, like, really getting to visit the world. Like, that's the perk of having technology. And then we can do this for our kids, something that we couldn't have ever dreamt of for ourselves. Our kids can have that experience, And then, like, at the end of all this, all these points, is, like, integrating everything with each other. Like, why can't you have, students in college or in internships or whatever kind of take on, or apprenticeships, take on, like, that are in teaching or in tourism or whatever it is that it would help with the experience of dealing with younger kids or people in general. Chaperone kids who are in high school who would love to go to these countries for specific learning experiences, and a few teenagers because this person loves a specific instrument that came from this country, like, and chaperoning them to these countries. Like, we would have classrooms in businesses. Like, businesses would have 1 or 2 rooms of classrooms where people would come every day to kind of learn about what that industry does, kind of thing. Farms and everything like that. You could also have, like, planned trips to other countries. And I know that's like on the expensive end of things, but like if there was a kid who knew that they love this specific type of instrument that came from that country, and they were a kid, they're a teenager. Most people go on these trips in high school or college when they have a better idea of where they want to work. Maybe they know they're going to be in business and they want to know the language of this country and, get familiar with it. And maybe in the future they're planning to go back and forth a lot and they want to know what it's like to live there. And that might be in like high school and college. But as a kid, like, you love this instrument and it came from this country, like you're planning to have education there. Why can't you go as a kid, And like we have that one classroom that specialized in this thing, and like people from all communities, like you can get a bunch of kids, fill that classroom, even though it's a very niche, very specific subject matter. You can do the same for these kinds of trips, and the same for when you go to, classroom and that business, and classroom on that farm, the classroom and here and there. It should be expanded. It should be interactive. It should be interwoven. All these things. And it's like, it's not impossible. We're moving into the age of AI where it's easier to bring like an individual curriculum, make an individual curriculum for each child to kind of figure out like how many kids from this area and that area and this area would want to learn this kind of topic. It kind of reminds me of like we had like this AP class in my high school, and like they're like, if enough kids sign up for this class, we'll get a teacher for it, but if not, then like we're going to take the kids who want it and bring them to a local community college and have them take it there. Kind of like figuring out like networking, like how can we make a classroom for this? Can we make, how can we, like, making a very like a web of different classrooms and different locations and different businesses and different subject matter. It can happen with quantum computing, with AI, with all the new technologies that we're having on. So I'm kind of leaning into the future. It's like, what can we do that we didn't have, that we can not only bring in the basics, but bring in the new stuff? Like, how can we improve upon the things that we on what we agree is the basics of education? How can we improve it with where we are now in modern society and modern technology? So I think that's something to think about. The video is pretty long already, but I'm just gonna go down the list of the 7 points I have. If you have any input or additions, or you want me to refine something, that'd be awesome. Okay, so first is how to deal with emotions. Yeah. Second is being around different age groups. Third is having an individually curated curriculum. The fourth is being exposed to as many careers, jobs, and paths as possible. 5 is classes about life, how society works, what society needs, and why we need these occupations. 6 is practical life skills, and 7 is technology and education. All right, so those are my 2 cents. Let me know if you have any input, if anyone sees this ever. Thank you for listening, and I wish you much love and light.